We've got Louise Taggart, who, as Janet said, has been a very active member of FACK ever since sadly her young brother Michael was killed at the age of 26. He was an electrician who was electrocuted in an industrial accident. She's not only been a member of FACK, she's also been very busy in Scottish Hazards and works very closely with Scottish Hazards. I don't think it would be quite caught it when Janet mentioned it, but this year she was actually voted by the readers of Safety and Health Practitioners as the most influential person in health and safety in 2018.
Thank you to everybody who...
I just thought I'd repeat that because I know it embarrasses her every time we say it. But I'll hand over now to Louise to talk about Michael and what she's been doing.
Thank you. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I was quite glad to see so many hands go up as new people because I'm here quite often. Joan will tell you often need tissues, and I thought I would start today rather than by me telling you about Michael, but up there. So I'm going to show you a very quick video to start, and then I'll chat some more afterwards. Okay. My brother Michael was an electrician. He was working with a colleague to install a security system, and he suffered a fatal electric shock. He'd cut a cable and he'd thrown it down to his colleague, and that cable was labelled not in use. Now he was stripping insulating material from the cable when he got to the live wire, and it was energised to mains voltage of 230 volts. The HSE inspector said if he'd been holding his snips by the insulated grips, there'd have been no effect. But the sparks, the other electricians that were working with him, said in practice when they were doing that job, they would have their thumb on the metal part of the snips to get the purchase necessary to get that insulating material off. He suffered a heart attack. And that came about because the most common reaction to electric shock is for muscles to contract. He was gripping his snips, the muscles in his hand contracted. He'd have desperately wanted to let go, but he couldn't. So that night I'd got home from work a bit later than normal. I was standing in the kitchen and I was making my dinner, and I'd just actually been thinking, when's that wee shite coming back to fix that socket for me? Just as I'd been thinking that, the phone went, and it was my mum to tell me that Michael had been in an accident in Dundee and that her and my dad were on their way to the hospital. So we jumped in our car, we set off on the 60-mile drive north, and when we got to the car park at 9 Miles Hospital in Dundee, I could see my mum and dad standing up at the door of accident and emergency, and I just knew that he was dead. They'd have been at his bedside otherwise. There were a series of safety failures that resulted in Michael's death. Lock-off tag-out devices weren't provided by Michael's employer, despite being referred to in the company's method statement. The company also didn't provide the testing equipment that they should have. They didn't keep the risk assessment live. So a risk assessment for low voltage electrical work is described by the mechanical project manager at the trial as being a living document, when in fact it was nothing of the sort. It was described by the HSE as being completely inadequate. Supervision was abysmal. The electrical supervisor was to tell the HSE inspectors when he was interviewed that he didn't regard it as part of his job to ensure that safe working practices were adhered to at all times. But the fact is that we're never going to know all of the answers to what led to Michael's death, because some of those answers could only be given by Michael himself. We don't know the process that Michael followed leading up to him cutting that cable. Did he test? We don't know. Or did he use a shortcut that it seems that a lot of sparks used then and I think still used today, which is to cut through all three parts of a cable at the same time, and if it goes bang, it means it's live. I think the fact is that if management had been doing their job on that site, then if there were shortcuts, they wouldn't have been acceptable. The safe systems of work wouldn't have just existed on paper, they would actually have been put into practice. There would have been the correct training and support there for the supervisor, and the guys on that site would have had the right safety equipment to be doing their jobs safely. And Michael, he would still be alive today. Michael was a larger-than-life character. He would bounce into a room, and it will sound a bit cheesy because he was an electrician, but he was the person who would light it up. He had a cheeky grin. He had the patter to match that cheeky grin. He was the person who would be there to help, even if you hadn't asked for help, you just somehow knew that you needed it. Michael was also a keen golfer, and a very good one at that, and that's the reason why we play a memorial golf tournament for him every year. He also loved football, although his choice of team left a lot to be desired because he was a Jambo Hearts fan. The fact was he was 26 years old and engaged to be married. And he had his whole life ahead of him to live. Michael was a son, a brother, and a fiancé, and he didn't live to get the opportunity to become an uncle, a husband, or a dad. And it's because Michael didn't get to live to become that uncle, husband or dad that a legacy needs to be left for him in a very different way. So becoming a FACK almost 12 years ago now, work should be life-changing in a positive way. Somebody stopped it from the audio. That's not what we needed. Start again. So yeah, becoming a FACK almost 12 years ago now has given me the strength to make my brother's death count, and therefore his life count beyond his 26 years on this earth. And so often that is the case for those who lose a loved one to a work-related cause. We don't want vengeance, we don't want revenge. We want the death of our loved ones to count for something positive in the lives of others. We want the death of our sibling, spouse or significant other to stop anyone else from suffering as we do. And I think we're in this room tonight because we believe that the lives of all those who died because of work should be counted, as that's how they'll be made to count. Because still far too often we hear health and safety referred to as a burden on business, red tape, the tiresome impediment to getting the job done, when nothing could be further from the truth. My wee brother's death, it did count in the collective consciousness of the general public, because it was included in the HSE's annual fatality statistics. The year he died, the public would have been led to believe that 212 workers were killed at work, because that's what the HSE said. That 212 also included Mark Wright and Graham Meldrum, respectively the son of Dorothy and Douglas Wright and the partner of Karen Thompson. They are also fellow FACKers. Now, had Michael, Mark and Graham died this past year, they'd have been among 144 people who died at work. Right? Wrong. Because while that annual statistic from the HSE is the one most often quoted, yes, it doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. It doesn't count firefighter, husband and father of two small boys, Lee Gaunt, who took his own life after a colleague died tackling a blaze, tormented by work pressures and thoughts of what he could have done to prevent that tragedy.
Nor does it count Dr. Lauren Connolly, who crashed when driving home exhausted from another inhumane junior doctor shift, or Erin McQuaid and her grandparents among 6 killed in the Glasgow bin lorry crash. Ailey Cairns, she was crushed under the wheels of a lorry, but like her ghost bike, she's invisible in the HSE figures, as are all those who've died offshore in Super Puma helicopter disasters. Peter Clunas, who died last month when his helicopter ditched while working on a fish farm, and the 2 fishermen whose bodies were recently raised in their boat, the Nancy Glen. That headline HSE figure also doesn't capture those who die because of work. Julie Roberts, she lost both her dad and her uncle within a matter of weeks of one another, and she's doing her damnedest to make sure that mesothelioma matters. But she needs our help. And who among you wants to tell newly engaged Kayla Brewer's partner and young son that you're not counting her death? She just finished the school run when a pallet of bricks crashed down on top of her. The fact that 144 people should leave for work and never make it home is awful enough, but we do a disservice to all work-bereaved families when we use it as an annual work-related death toll. Please don't let your unions do it, particularly around International Workers' Memorial Day. Instead, get them to tell the whole story, as researched and written by Hilda Palmer, Rory O'Neill, Dave White and Steve Toombs. That whole story, it counts work-related suicides. Be that an experienced head teacher who felt stressed by inspection regimes, a newly promoted teacher who felt overloaded, a lecturer whose wife described him as carrying the burden of his work with him, a police officer who'd witnessed the murder of his colleagues. But it's currently only the Hazards campaign which does count work-related suicides. Such deaths aren't recognised. The HSE doesn't investigate. But if they were, how many future deaths could be prevented? The whole story also doesn't include road traffic deaths. And these most often are victims who were not at work, but were killed by work. Mothers and their children killed because vehicles were unroadworthy or their drivers were. They died because work equipment was unsafe, or training was inadequate, or unrealistic deadlines had been set. Again, if these were all recognised, trends identified, think of the preventative measures. The whole story also includes deaths investigated by the air and marine accident investigation branches. Fishermen who go to work, a sea cadet let down in the worst possible way by those who were meant to look after her. Those who were travelling along the A27 when a plane taking part in the Shoreham Air Show plummeted to the ground, and whose families have so far endured a near 3-year wait for answers. And those who died in the Clutha air crash, police officers and a pilot, and 7 men who went to the pub that night not knowing that they were going for their last night. These families are approaching 5 years without answers. The whole story, it does currently include some, but not all deaths investigated by the Office of Rail and Road, and Scottish Hazards will be watching to see if the death of a worker recently at Bearsden Station will be counted. It cannot be right that the general public does not have these in its collective conscience when an annual work-related fatality statistic is apparently issued. And it's also wrong in the extreme that the public is in some ways shielded from the whole story when it comes to deaths from work-related illness. Wives who've had prolonged exposure to asbestos from their husband's overalls when doing the family laundry. The cash and carry worker exposed when birds pecked at the crumbling roof of the building in which he worked. The teachers and pupils who have died as a result of exposure in our schools. And Simon Pickford, a giant of the hazards movement, who did so much to ensure the lives of others counted, and who contracted mesothelioma from his time as a construction worker. These are people dying the most painful and heartbreaking of deaths, but singularly. Just as your biggest strength is a collective one, ensuring these deaths are counted and recognised collectively is where their biggest preventative strength lies. And lastly, the whole story should most certainly capture
all members of the public who die as a result of work-related health and safety failings. The sister and daughter who'd been admitted to hospital for care in relation to her mental health, who after a number of attempts and warnings from her family that not enough was being done to protect her, took her own life. Or the little girls who'd been taken for a fun family day out when their lives were taken in the cruelest of fashions. And it should damn well include the 72 souls who perished at Grenfell. When all these lost lives are made to count, 144 is not an annual work-related death toll, it's a daily one. 1,500 loved ones who die in incidents, and a further 50,000 who die due to illness. If from today we all ensure the whole story is the one that is given the prominence that it deserves, we'll better see root causes identified, lessons learned, preventative enforcement prioritised. And together we'll help stop so many chapters from ending in tragedy, and instead be the authors of an altogether more positive story. Thank you.